Junkyard.
How is it going, everyone? It is your boy, Junkyard James. And I'm making up for some lost time. I hadn't done a couple solo episodes in a while. I gave you one on Monday, but I want to give you another one here as on this wonderful Saturday morning to talk about a topic I think that I can speak to pretty passionately. And it has nothing to do about individual wrestlers per se. But we'll get into that here in a minute. I want to give a shout out to our affiliate links that we're a part of. We are a WWE shop partner. Link, as always, will be in the description. Clash at the Castle is this afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Maybe you want to get yourself a Drew McIntyre shirt or a Seth Rollins or a Becky Lynch or Liv Morgan, whoever may appease your senses. Get their stuff. Use our link in the description for the WWE shop, and you get some cool merch, and we get a bit of a commission off of all the sales on our link. Help support the podcast that way. Another way you can support the podcast, at least monetarily, is by the purchasing energy drinks and energy mix powder from Dubby Energy at dubby.gg using the code Beyond the Yard in the discount code box at checkout. That'll help us out. We get, again, another commission off of a portion of the sales that use that discount code. Get yourself 10% off. I've tried the powder and I've tried the energy drinks, and they're pretty good. I like them. They're pretty competitive with some of the competitive markets, and they're just getting into the liquid energy drink market. They were just powder for quite some time from my research, but thanks to the folks out there at Dubby Energy for allowing us to partner with them and use that code Beyond the Yard at checkout for 10% off your purchase. With that, let's get into the show. And so the title of this episode is For the Sickos. And for those who don't have social media, particularly like X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, that phrase might not make a lot of sense. What does it mean for the sickos? That is a phrase that has been used in wrestling, on wrestling Twitter, on the IWC Twitter feed for quite some time. And essentially, it's just people who love wrestling, like the wrestling aspect of pro wrestling, more than the sports entertainment sector. So I know Tony Khan put out a tweet a while back that said, I book wrestling for the sickos. And he was playing into the drama, or into the I guess you could say the virality of this comment, for the sickos. And I want to talk about why For the Sickos exists, and why I think it's the sole reason AEW exists, and why I'm glad it exists, because AEW is for the sickos, and it's where the best wrestle. And that's, again, this is where AEW has fit inside of their niche, and where so many of these people that talk about so-called casual wrestling, the casual wrestling fans, they look at things from a WWE perspective when they see AEW, and they have to take those glasses off and look at things from a from a non-WWE perspective, from an AEW perspective. If AEW were to do everything to the exact same formula of WWE, would it not just be WWE Light? So they have to differentiate themselves from the WWE. And like I've been saying for the past 5 years, since AEW has been in existence, it's not here to compete on the same level as WWE. It's there to compete in a different market segment as WWE. Because let's think about it. WWE for quite some time had been the only mainstream wrestling promotion, and they were providing, end of the Attitude Era, beginning of the Ruthless Aggression Era. They were providing good wrestling and good sports entertainment, and there was a balance between the both. There was a balance of, you could watch WWE and get a really good story being told, and you could watch really good matches at the same time. And so you could go to WWE at this point in time, and if you didn't really care about the in-ring work, but you cared about, the storytelling, well then Mickie James and Trish Stratus was there to give you a pretty decent story of like some obsessed girl who was a lesbian girl that wanted a relationship with Trish Stratus. The in-ring product between the two wasn't great, but the story was phenomenal. They were wacky stories, Mae Young giving birth to a hand and all of that stuff. Like, there was funny comedy stuff, there was serious stuff, and then there was good in-ring wrestling at the same time. But then somewhere along the way, WWE decided, hey, let's just make this more entertainment and less wrestling. Let's just focus on the sports entertainment. And so the good wrestling, while it was there in the background, it didn't take a priority in WWE's landscape. And so we get to 2017, 2018, and into 2019 when AEW announced they were being created. There was a piece of the fan base that WWE had who cared about the in-ring product that they basically marginalized to, like the outskirts of the wrestling sphere. And those are the people that when AEW was created, and AEW promised that they were going to give us really good wrestling and an alternative to WWE. That's always been the wording, by the way, an alternative to WWE. It was never a competitor to WWE. It's just an alternative. It's just something else. If you're not satisfied with what WWE is providing you, we're an alternative to that. So they've never really, Tony Khan hasn't really said that they were in competition with WWE. I wanted people to make that very clear. But that's why AEW is so important. Because now there's an alternative. There's a place where those who felt marginalized by WWE are bored with the lame in-ring product, and they could, at that point in time, they really weren't doing the storytelling part all too great. Like, Baron Corbin was dumping dog food on Roman Reigns. Like, it wasn't great stories at that point in time, and their in-ring product was just absolutely abysmal. You had your decent matches, but it wasn't anything, like your best matches in WWE in that time would be like mid-tier matches at the peak of WWE. So it wasn't like there was anything special. And in a lot of ways, I felt like WWE was making pro wrestling take a few steps backwards. The casual fans or the WWE exclusive fans, however you want to name them, they're one and the same. They like to talk about how wrestling's not popular anymore, and we're never going to get Attitude Era numbers again. Well, who's to blame for that? It's not AEW. It's not TNA. It's not New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's WWE. Them mistreating the product for so long hindered the growth of the sport, of the business. And so AEW comes along, and there's these people that felt ostracized. Felt like their opinion of the product wasn't being taken seriously. Like, we want good in-ring work. We want good storytelling, but let's we don't have to have a soap opera. Let them tell the story in different ways. We can have one segment where it is a little soap opera-ish, and that's okay, but when every segment is the same damn thing, it gets a little redundant. We can have a little soap opera with a little high-action sport, with a little love triangle, with, let's mix it all in, and WWE wasn't really doing a good job at that, so they've ostracized a piece of the fan base, excuse me. And AEW comes in and they say, those people that feel ostracized, come to AEW. Support AEW. We're going to give you really good wrestling. That's always been what it is. So in a way, the WWE mistreating the business for so long created AEW, which created For the Sickos. Right? WWE is creating their own alternative by mistreating the product. If they had just kept doing what they were doing in the Ruthless Aggression era and giving us really good matches and really good stories and finding a perfect blend between the two, I don't think fans would have complained. Now, more competition or more business and more opportunities for wrestlers is also a good thing, right? So it's not just about WWE mistreating the product. They were also underpaying their wrestlers, mistreating their wrestlers, and AEW creates an environment where those who felt like they weren't getting TV time, or they weren't being treated properly in WWE, or weren't getting paid properly, now can go to AEW, get paid good, get the time and schedule that they want, and now it opens up the business to where more people get paid more money, and there's more conversations with wrestlers from multiple companies, which means more money is being spent on wrestlers. Rumor has it that MJF is making somewhere close to $60 million or something like that over his new deal that he signed, which sounds like it may be like a 4-year deal. He's making good money to be the top guy in the company. He's making really good money, and that wouldn't have been a thing if AEW didn't exist, right? Becky Lynch is looking at being the highest paid female in the business. That probably wouldn't have happened if AEW didn't exist. Because if WWE is not going to give Becky Lynch the money and the things that she feels she deserves, AEW is going to swoop in and pick her up. I don't think Becky's the type of person that is going to feel any sort of loyalty to a company. I see Becky as following what makes sense the most to her and her family. Right? There's no loyalty to WWE and a lot of these people anymore, because people realize you don't have to. WWE is not always your end goal. It doesn't have to always be your end goal. You can still do what you love and be seen on TV in another company now. But anyways, I progress. So what does it mean to be a sicko? Well, it just means you love wrestling. the in-ring product, the high-flying moves and beatdowns and blood and just everything that encapsulates pro wrestling. When you think of pro wrestling, you think of like Mankind jumping off the steel cage. That's for the sickos, right? Risking your body and your life for the fans. That's for the sickos. The sickos are the people that love that kind of stuff. And let me turn it into something that can kind of collaborate with a prior episode of this podcast. Just go to this past Thursday when we did our Fantasy Forbidden Door draft. And everyone was talking about my draft and how I drafted a lot of people that were quote-unquote reaches. But I drafted with the sickos in mind. Because I myself am a sicko. I love people who love to fight in the ring. And don't get me wrong, story is great. But I jump off with Will Ospreay. And he's the greatest wrestler in the world right now. Greatest wrestler in the world. And then I jump, and my first female is Athena. And I think she's the best female wrestler in the world right now. I really do. She's better than Becky. She's better than Charlotte. She's better. But the problem is that she's on ROH, so people don't think that. But she's having a really dominant ROH championship. She's doing really good promo work with Billy Starks and Lexi Nair as her minions. And every match she puts on to defend that ROH Women's World title is a really good match. And so, yeah, I think Athena is worth a second round pick. And I go in, I draft the Patriarchy, and I draft Shota Umino and people like Tetsuya Naito and Hikuleo. I go in and everyone I drafted in this fantasy draft was someone that I knew could put on a really good match in the ring. I don't really care about promo work. Because to me, the story is told in the ring. And the promo work is just like the condiments. Right? It's just added. And sometimes you don't need it if you have a really good product. The in-ring work to me is like a really good steak. Right? Cooked just to perfection. You don't need condiments. But if someone overcooks it, you're going to need a little bit of ketchup or steak sauce or something to eat it. You're going to still eat it. It's still going to taste okay, but you're going to need a little extra to finish it, to make it palatable for you. If the in-ring work is just perfection and great, and you can tell the story through the in-ring work, you don't need really good promos. Because the story's being told in front of you, live, in the ring. Pay attention. You'll see the story. But if the in-ring work is choppy at best, and it's a little not great, if it's not perfection, if it wasn't cooked properly, if they didn't do their, if they're not doing their in-ring work justice, then yeah, you're going to need the promos and the vignettes and all of that to help make it palatable for people. And so I could go without promos. Give me 60-minute matches on Dynamite, and I'm happy. Give me a 30-second promo. That's why I'm not a big fan of the Jericho Learning Tree shit. Because there's no in-ring work. It's just a bunch of backstage bullshit. And it's a little funny, but it's not needed. It's not adding anything. It would be worth something if this was progressing towards a match of some type. But I don't see it progressing towards anything. It's just Jericho and his people, Brian Keith and Big Bill, cutting jokes that are like innuendos of the wrestling business. And it's like, it's crap, in my opinion. There's no interest of it to me. I would like to take Darby Allin's flamethrower and burn the learning tree to a pulp, if I'm being honest. But like, I would rather watch Darby Allin coffin drop off a ladder onto, chairs than watch the learning tree, because it gives me something to be excited about. I'd rather watch Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher have just a 10-star match, or Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita at AEW Revolution have a 8-star match, or Ricochet versus Will Ospreay. Hopefully we see that in the future, and they're going to have a just completely fantastic match, and we don't have to have the promo battles to put it together. Why do I love Eddie Kingston? Because he's out there, he's going to say a few words, and then he's going to meet you in the ring and beat the ever-living shit out of you. That's what I love about pro wrestling. I don't need the soap opera. Put him in the ring, and let's go. I don't need story. Give me matches. So you look at the other competitors that I drafted with, their boards. They were trying to match how many heels they had, and how many faces they have, and how many tag teams they have, and all of that. I just want people that know how to wrestle and can wrestle good. And you give me Bullet Club War Dogs, and the Patriarchy, and Blackpool Combat Club, 3 really solid stables. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But that's what it means to be a sicko, is to just love the product. And again, it's kind of like the Frankenstein invention of WWE, because they ostracized us for so long. We're dedicated to AEW now. That's why we're so loyal. That's why you have such a loyal fan base behind AEW, is because for once we kind of actually feel like, hey, there's a wrestling promotion that gives a shit about what we want. Tony Khan has been very, very adamant of, if the fans don't want something, or the fans want something, he's going to try and work it in to the best of his ability. I remember when the Acclaimed first won the titles at Arthur Ashe Stadium. The week before, I believe, was All Out in Chicago. And they were thinking, the fans were ready to explode had the Acclaimed won in Chicago. But they lost. And Tony Khan took major heat on social media, saying this was a very bad decision. And so the very next week, what happens? Arthur Ashe, they get their rematch, and the Acclaimed won. Tony Khan righted a wrong. WWE, Triple H would have... You want to know what Triple H would have done? Because he's done it before. When the fans start complaining about the booking, he would just come out there and do his promo and make fun of the fans. Remember when he was like, oh, I'm just going to cry on Twitter, and oh, I'm such a... my name's Mark, and blah, blah... He's making fun of his own people. He's ostracizing his own people. Tony Khan tries to work with the fans. He wants to interact with the fans. Because he himself is a fan. And that's what I'm trying to tell people, is that you're looking at it through a lens of that's tainted WWE. Take the lens off. Take the tainted glasses off for just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. And see that Tony Khan books his show differently because it's meant to be booked differently. Because he's booking his show for something that fans themselves would like. Because he himself is a fan. WWE books for what can we do to make the most, quote unquote, most entertaining product. So they're going to run the bloodline storyline until they can suck it dry. What can we sell the most merch out of? I'll say it that way. That's what WWE looks at it. They don't look at it as, what do the fans want? It's, how can I make money off of this? Right? And so they're going to introduce 1,000 Samoans to be part of the bloodline so that they can just make merch after merch after merch after merch after merch. And it's going to sell because there are a lot of WWE fans. Don't get me wrong. WWE is still the number one company in the world for a reason. And it works for their audience. But for these fans to go and say, AEW is just never going to succeed because they're not focused on the casual base, is such a WWE-esque view of things. Because AEW was never trying to be WWE. They want it to be, again, an alternative to WWE. And how do you become an alternative? You step in your own lane. And so they market themselves. AEW markets themselves as a place for the sickos and a place where the best wrestle. They say it every week, not as some cheesy catchphrase, but literally as if it's like their business slogan. As if for the sickos and where the best wrestle is literally like you could print it on a t-shirt and it'll be like an AEW motto shirt. Like it's their motto. They truly believe in their mission statement that they are where the best wrestle. And so I'll end by saying this. WWE has perfected their model. I don't think AEW has perfected theirs yet, but they're getting there. I don't think AEW will ever surpass the WWE. Just because WWE is just a different beast. And now that it's run by the same guys that run UFC, they just have so many more outlets that AEW hasn't gotten into yet. And it's a much more well-established business. That's not to say that AEW is second fiddle. Because I think the product of AEW, if WWE fans, again, were to come in here and act like they've never watched pro wrestling ever a day in their life, and turn on AEW and watch it without WWE tainted glasses on, take the glasses off and watch it as if you're watching a new show for the first time with an open mind, I think they would see that the show is pretty decent. Does it have its flaws? Yes. I'm an AEW fan. I love AEW. I'm a super fan of AEW. I would love to be able to take this podcast and get media credentials for an AEW pay-per-view press conference or media scrum. Like, I would love that. I would geek out if I was ever selected to get media passes. But I'm not afraid to say that it's not perfect. I'm not afraid to say that there are some things that I just don't like about the company. And that's fair. That's normal. To say that the company still has opportunities for growth is good. Companies should continue to grow. But let's just be honest. AEW is not in as bad of a spot that all of these WWE fans are saying that they're in. They're not close to death. They're still breathing just fine. And so the question has to be, why does the WWE fan base expect AEW to basically become a cloned version of WWE? Performance Center, storylines, and vignettes, and backstage promos. If all they did was this, and if all they did was this, and if they focused less on Eddie Kingston and Darby Allin, and then they focused more on casual fans, then maybe AEW could do something. And you sit there and you're like, so you want them to be a second version of WWE. Well, what would that get them? Nothing. They're not different than WWE at that point. That's the whole point of being an alternative, is to be something different than what's out there. It'd be like trying to tell Pepsi that they needed to make Starry taste more like Sprite. Like, what? The point of having competition or to have alternatives is to have differences. Because if it's the same, then there's no point in having two separate products. If AEW was an exact replica of WWE, there'd be no point for AEW. Because it's just WWE Light with a different roster. And so the point I'm trying to make is that AEW isn't perfect, but it isn't dying either. It's getting stronger. The media deal's coming along. We still have 1 full month of exclusive talks with Warner Bros. And I think a deal will be made. But let me tell you this. Even if a deal with Warner Bros. Isn't made, AEW will find another TV host. And they will be stronger. Because there's value to the network. There's value to the brand. Warner Bros. Is happy with where things are going. And with that being said, all my sickos, all the ones who love blood and gore and excitement in the ring and stories being told in the ring, all my teammates, all my sickos who love hot girl graps, as Mariah May would say. We finally have something that we can claim to be ours, and that's AEW. But until next Thursday, y'all, I'll talk to y'all on the flip. This has been another episode of the Beyond the Junkyard podcast. Remember, links in the description. Like, comment, share this post. Share it with your peoples. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Links in the description. JunkyardMediaGroup.com is where you can find all our social medias on X and Facebook and YouTube. And we got a Discord page you can join on there as well, JunkyardMediaGroup.com. Click the links for our affiliate pages with WWE Shop and go to w.gg and use code Beyond the Yard for 10% off at w.gg. Until next time, y'all, this has been Beyond the Junkyard.